What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Seeking Sushi video. So this video is about my most recent trip back to my home city of St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, where I came back more or less like a tourist. I haven't been back since pre-pandemic times. And so times have changed. A lot has also remained the same. And in this video, I want to give you some recommendations based on the places that I visited during this time. So before I start, I will highlight some recommendations in Welland, Niagara-on-the-Lake, and St. Catharines, where the bulk of my recommendations will be. Unfortunately, I didn't spend enough time in Niagara Falls, but I have to say that in general, a lot of these places are very touristy, a little bit pricey as you get closer to the falls, and so I typically prefer things that are off the beaten path. You can spend all the time you want on Clifton Hill, which I find really nice for families, but for me as someone who's an avid foodie, an avid coffee drinker, I would stay a bit away from Clifton Hill, to be honest, but that's just my personal preference. So the first place I actually visited as I was coming from Toronto was Taris on the water. Now this is a place that was not really high on my list, but it was a recommendation from my cousin who planned this igloo dinner event. So this restaurant lies on the edge of the Welland Canal, which is famous around the region. Now what I like about this place is the overall atmosphere, but I have to say this food was not my personal favorite. I did have this salmon, which everyone at the table agreed was the best meal, but some of the fries were undercooked, the salad was not exceptional. So in general, it's a great experience. I highly recommend it for a first-time visitor, but overall, not the biggest fan, but if you're into that kind of unique experience, I would give it a try. Now, moving on to Niagara-on-the-Lake. Niagara-on-the-Lake is definitely the gem of Niagara. A lot of people like to go to Niagara Falls because of the falls, of course. Just about a 20-minute drive away lies Niagara-on-the-Lake. And this is where a lot of the seniors would like to retire, a lot of nice homes are there. And of course, the cuisine and the overall atmosphere is just a bit more on a higher scale, let's say. And so the first recommendation on my list is the drawing room, which is actually located in the Prince of Wales Hotel. That's along the main street. I believe it's Queen Street, but it does turn into a different street. And this was one of the highlights of my whole trip. So my girlfriend and I went there on New Year's Day. We reserved a table because the space is quite limited, but as soon as you enter, you feel like you've kind of transported into old British times. I'm not a huge tea drinker, although I do appreciate a cup of tea here and there. And this place kind of had this sense of affluence. You felt fancy as you went there. And despite that, I would say the service is very friendly. They're not stuck up, they're very down to earth, and they really do know what they're talking about. So they have a lot of varieties of tea, which I do highly recommend. I can't remember exactly what I ordered, but it was something peachy, I believe, or passion fruity. Had those notes. So on top of that, we ordered this stack of finger foods from sandwiches, little desserts, and it was awesome. So each little thing had its own unique taste. The sandwiches were bomb. They also have gluten-free options, and the desserts, I have to say, were also a highlight. They were all freshly made that day, and so what you can always rely on this place is their quality and their variety. So I highly recommend this place if you are visiting Niagara-on-the-Lake. Now, if you're going for a stroll along Queen Street, I highly recommend stopping by Niagara Home Bakery. So here you can try a nice assortment of baked goods, pastries. One of my personal favorites are butter tarts, and butter tarts are basically like this doughy pie thing filled with butter and little sweets. You can have chocolatey flavors. You can also add nuts to it. It's fairly priced, and you have a nice sample of what Canadian desserts and pastries taste like. What I do like about this place is their home-baked feel. Overall, once you try these desserts, you do have the sense of, it just came from the oven. So moving on to my hometown of St. Catharines. Now, one place that I feel like has changed a lot throughout the years is Port Dalhousie. I remember growing up that this place was booming. The carousel was lit. There were people lined up at the carousel going for a swim at the beach, and there were a lot of shops around. However, nowadays, I'm not sure what the reason is, perhaps economic reasons, but this place has become sort of a ghost town, I have to say. There are a lot of shops there still and restaurants, but it is less dense than it used to be. Overall, it's still a nice place to go for a walk stroll on the beach and to enjoy some food and coffee. So the first recommendation was actually never on the top of my mind. It's called Twisted Pig. So as soon as you enter Port Lucie, it's one of the first restaurants you see. We just went there because we were looking for something to eat. A lot of places were closed, but this one happened to be open at a later time. So what I really liked about this place was that overall the atmosphere isn't exceptionally unique, but I really liked the gnocchi that was served. I think we paid about 20 bucks, but it was one of the best meals I've had in the region. On top of that, the garden salad was also really good. Fresh vegetables, nicely seasoned, and overall great presentation. And just around the corner are a couple of coffee shops, one being Balzac's Coffee. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, to be honest. Maybe it's Balzac's. This place is a chain in Canada, so this is not unique to Port Lucie nor St. Catharines, but rather it is a staple all over Canada, I believe. So it's kind of like a Starbucks or a Second Cup. The pro is that you do have that familiar, cozy vibe, which I really like. However, when it comes to specialty coffee lovers, the baristas at the time did not know much about the process of how the coffee was made, so we couldn't really go deep into conversation, but they were friendly, of course. They are Canadian, and we ordered this Canadian cappuccino latte kind of thing, which is basically cappuccinos sweetened with maple syrup. But if you want something that's quick, easy, reliable, this is the place to grab your coffee. Down the street, a couple doors, is 416 Coffee Co. I believe there's another location outside of this one in St. Catharines, but this is more of a specialty coffee place. As soon as you walk in, you notice that it's a very tight atmosphere, tight environment, but they do use the space pretty well. They even have the menu on the ceiling, which makes you kind of like turn your head, of course. Everything they do is quite intentional. The humor is pretty prevalent in their coffee cups, the way they place items, and just their little sayings on the walls. This is where you get a good cup of coffee, a lot of different varieties, and I'm pretty sure if you ask them, how it was made, where they source their beans, and etc., they're likely to know. We just went there to stop by and grab a coffee. Spacing is quite limited, but they are aware of that, so it's more of a grab and go kind of place rather than a sit down. Moving on to downtown St. Catharines. Now, I have to say, St. Catharines in general is not a pretty place by any means, but a lot of the life happens in downtown St. Catharines, which is not the most pleasing to the eye, but they do have a lot of gems when it comes to food and coffee. The first place I want to recommend is Mahtay or Mahtay's Coffee. I remember growing up, this is the place where there were a lot of coffee houses, a lot of live performances. Overall, pretty decent coffee. It's a great place to grab a drink with some friends. It's quite spacious. And the barista there with whom I spoke, he's Brazilian and he spoke a little bit of German, so we kind of exchanged a little bit in German, recommended de la Terre, which I'll get to in a sec. And he knew quite a bit about where the beans came from, which ones had different flavors, and so he was a great person to talk to. In general, I highly recommend it if you're a general coffee lover, specialty coffee lover as well. So depending on who's staffed, they are relatively knowledgeable about the beans that they serve. Right across the street is Green Apple Coffeehouse. This place is also cozy. They have little booths, kind of like bars, and they do serve some pretty good coffee in general in big portions, and at a good price as well. But overall, great vibe, great cookies that my cousin ordered. They were great. So if you want something quick or if you want to spend some time with some friends, this is also a great recommendation. Now, one staple I have to say is unique to St. Catharines, I believe, is Beechwood Donuts. Now, this is a place that pretty much everyone in St. Catharines knows. So this place offers exclusively vegan donuts. That's what they're known for. And what I like about this place, that's rather petite. So there's not a lot of hustle and bustle, and they do take time to prepare your order. The cashier at the time, he recommended his favorite donuts, and he kind of conversed with us rather than just taking our order and then just checking us out. This place is also changing when it comes to their offerings. So depending on the season, depending on the time of the year, they do have different offers. My only knock on this place is that I wish they had some indoor seating. So this place, I think they moved from the last time I visited, but they moved on St. Paul Street, the main street. And at the time, because it was COVID, they didn't have any seating, so it was more of a to-go kind of place. But I would appreciate some seating in the summertime, especially if you want to just enjoy a bite with a friend or a small group of friends as well. But this is definitely a recommendation at any time of the year. Now, I'm a huge fan of Asian food in general, specifically cheap but also high quality food, and I think one of the best places to go to is Pho Dau Bo, which is on Geneva Street, just outside the main downtown area, and this place is great. So the interior is not the prettiest, but I have to say this is what I'm looking for a nice, genuine Asian place. So pho is Vietnamese, and here you can get a huge plate for about 12 to 14 bucks depending on the size and the type of pho you order. So I ordered the one with tofu. I think I paid about 12 bucks for it, and I almost couldn't finish it because it was so big. On top of that, we ordered bánh xèo, which is kind of like a Vietnamese crepe kind of thing. It's really delicious. It's filling as well. They also have a pretty decent portion size. You really can't go wrong in this place. No matter what you order, you will get bang for your buck. And I believe the waiters and waitresses are all Vietnamese, or at least of Asian descent. And that's also something I look for when I'm going to a nice, authentic Asian restaurant. So this is definitely a recommendation. I always stop by here every time I visit, so definitely check it out if you're in the area. And after you fill your bellies at Pho Dau Bo, just down the street is De La Terre, which I mentioned previously. So De La Terre is actually a bakery, so they're known for their bread more so than their coffee. However, as a coffee lover, I do pay attention to the coffee. I noticed that they serve their coffee from Pilot Coffee Roasters, which is actually located in Toronto, which I had previously visited, and their coffee is amazing. So as soon as I saw the logo, I was like, I know I can trust this coffee. The barista knew how to do some nice little latte art, so that was also nice. And overall, it's a nice, clean atmosphere. It's a very spacious place, but I think it's due to COVID. I have to say that this is probably my favorite coffee spot in St. Catharines just because of the quality of the coffee. I'll probably recommend Mahtay when it comes to the overall vibe. So thanks for staying till the end of the video, guys. Really appreciate this long one, but I had to speak on my hood, let's say. And I have to say the food scene in general is developing. It's not perfect, but I am seeing some trends happening, like, you know, specialty coffee shops, vegan, vegetarian options, and these things are starting to boom. However, there is a lot of room to grow. A lot of my favorites have remained, which is great, like Pho Dau Bo, for example, Mahtay Café, but there are new things popping up, and because of the pandemic, things had to shut down, but that just left some room for some new and exciting things. And if you like the video, I encourage you to subscribe, like the video, and follow me on Instagram at Sushi with 2 eyes, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Peace.